Welcome into Sportsmemo's betting podcast, the soccer and golf edition with our soccer and golf expert, Nick Borrman. Nick, welcome into the podcast. How are you?
Hey, Drew. How you doing?
I'm doing good. We were just talking off recording here about kind of the golf season here, and it goes all the way through August, the Tour Championship. But they changed the schedule just this year?
Yeah, they changed the major schedule this year. They were trying to end the season before football begins. It used to run and end in near the end of September, and having your biggest events with the last round of the event end on Sunday is not a great business model when you're competing with the NFL. So they changed it this year, moved one of the majors, which was they moved the Players Championship, which was always in May, up to March, and then they moved the PGA Championship, which was in August, up to May, so that way they could have the playoffs in August. They used to have the playoffs in September. So, yeah, big change. We'll see how it plays out this year, but they trying to get that season done before, like I said, NFL starts to get in the way.
Okay, that makes sense. We got the Desert Classic. Those picks you released, and the results are pending on your page at sportsmemo.com. And just looking at it now, you can get all the way through the Tour Championship with Nick Borman's picks on Sportsmemo. For just $399, that gets you all the way through August, all of his golf picks, which he's been great. 30-14 this season in golf. That's 68% on every play released, 7 out of 9 weeks so far in the profitable column. So great golf handicapper. We're actually going to do the first 15 minutes of the podcast on soccer, then the last 5 or 10 on golf if you're listening for one or the other. Soccer's been good too, 13-6, 68% on the 5% plays. And what, you got 2 5% going this week, huh, Nick?
Yeah, I do. I have one on Friday, one on Saturday. Both big total plays for me, so I'm excited to get to those to the weekend.
Absolutely, man. Well, let's give the people what they want. I guess, do you want to start off with any soccer news you want to throw out to the listeners?
Yeah. Last week we started with just a quick update on anything worth mentioning right now. Reminder: this month is transfer month, so a lot of players on the move. This week, really, the update is Diego Godin. He's been with Atletico Madrid for 9 years. He's reached a verbal agreement to join Inter Milan, which is in Italy's Serie A this summer. He's 32 years old and ranked as the number 3 center back by ESPN. So he's a big name out there that's on the move. He's going to start. He'll finish out the season with Atletico Madrid this year, and then he'll move over the summer. Atletico only offered him a 1-year deal, but he wanted something a little longer. Otherwise, there's a whole bunch of noise and stuff that I expect to happen probably by this time next week when we get together. There's still 2 more weeks, I guess, left in the transfer window. So a lot of the stuff happens kind of last minute, just like it does in any of the American sport trade windows where they always kind of happen last minute. So that's the big name moving this time right now. There was a couple big injuries that happened this week. Harry Kane of Tottenham, he had some ligament damage from his ankle from this past weekend. So that's a huge loss for Tottenham, and they're going to struggle now, I think, in the Premier League. They were number 3 with a chance maybe to kind of close in on Liverpool and Man City, but I think they're kind of going to struggle without their number 1 striker. He's been great over the years. So that's a big loss for them. And then Karim Benzema from Real Madrid. He's, again, their number 1 striker and guy up front, and he joins a list of now 7 other longtime players that are out for Madrid, like Gareth Bale, Toni Kroos, Marco Asensio. So those guys are going to be struggling right now, and definitely, I'm sure the markets will be. I'm looking at it right now for this weekend. They already, both situations, Tottenham and Real Madrid, both have already been adjusted down by about a quarter of a goal since the news of the update. So we'll see how both teams look this weekend and try to kind of understand what they're going to look like as they go forward, because it's anything we knew before is certainly going to be different with these guys out. And then lastly, Arsenal's keeper, Peter Cech, announced he's retiring at the end of the season. He's been playing professionally for 20 years. He's with Chelsea for 11 years, and he's been with Arsenal for the last 4. So long-time keeper in the Premier League, good guy. So he's calling it quits at the end of the year. But really, that's the news this week going on in soccer. So hopefully, I'm thinking next week we'll probably have a lot more to talk about on the transfer side.
Okay, and we got the EPL coming up as far as what we're breaking down on the podcast. And what, this weekend, no Friday or Monday games? It's all Saturday and Sunday, Nick?
Yeah, all Saturday and Sunday. This week, well, next week really, all the Premier League has, or the English teams, not all the teams necessarily are still in the tournaments, but they have a couple cup tournaments, which is instead of the league games, they play basically knockout style tournaments also throughout the year. So they have games midweek next week, so they're not doing anything into Monday this week.
Okay, first game up, we got Leicester at Wolves. Wolves minus 0.25, total of 2 and 2.25. Looks like they're both out there. How would you look to bet Leicester Wolves?
Yeah, so two middle of the table teams here, and two teams better known for their defense. Only the top four teams in the league have given up less goals than these two teams, which have conceded 25 and 26 so far this year. The Wolves were promoted to the Premier League from the second division, which is called the Championship, and they fared pretty well this year. Certainly better than the other two teams, Cardiff and Fulham, who are down at the bottom of the standings. The Wolves are more or less a lock to stay in the top division next year, and they'll be thrilled if they can finish in the top half of the table. They had a tough matchup this past weekend. They lost 0-3 to Manchester City after receiving what I thought was a pretty soft red card in the 19th minute. That game sucked. I was on the Wolves +2 and thought for sure that was going to be a cashed one. But once you lose a guy in the 19th minute, it's tough to keep up with the other team, especially when you're playing Man City. So, but they've been mediocre at home this year. They have just 4 wins, 2 draws, and 5 losses, and they've been negative on the goal differential. They have won 3 of their last 5 games, home games overall, though, including a Premier League win over Chelsea and a cup match against Liverpool. So they have beaten some big names recently as well. But then they also lost to Crystal Palace and Huddersfield, who are 2 teams near the bottom of the standings. The Wolves are the number 1 under team in the Premier League this season, with only 7 of their 22 games going over this total, including just 3 of 11 at home. And 4 of their 5 last Premier League games have stayed under as well. Leicester has had similar, what I consider head-scratching results. They beat Man City and Chelsea in successive games a few weeks ago, but then lost their last game at home to Southampton, playing actually with a man advantage, as Southampton had a red card in the first half as well, and they still couldn't come back and win. They've also been in a similar trend to the under, with only 9 of 22 games going over this total, including just 4 of 11 on the road. Leicester won the first meeting 2-0, and that game saw a total of only 5 shots on goal. So I'm expecting similar shot totals in this game. So even though the total is set low at 2 or 2.25, I think the under is the way to play this one. It's possible you can get the 2.25, but you're probably going to have to pay around -130, maybe all the way up to -140 on the juice. So I'd rather actually just play it as under 2, and worst case probably is a push there. You're getting around even money on the under 2, but that's how you play this one, Drew.
And Nick, just off the top of my head here, how much do you factor in home field advantage in the EPL?
It's about a quarter of a goal compared to NFL. NFL is usually three points. In soccer, it's about a quarter of a goal. So it does, just like any other sport, it's a huge factor when it comes to teams, getting up against better teams coming to visit them, and of course, fans are always going to motivate their home team to play well. But usually on the handicapping side, it's worth about a quarter of a goal.
Okay. We got West Ham at Bournemouth. Now it looks like Bournemouth is minus about a quarter of a goal. So that I'm guessing on a neutral field, the market would have a pick 'em. We got a total of 2.75 or 3. Both are out there. How'd you look to bet this one?
Yep, you're right on the money there, Drew. Definitely 2 even teams here, and 2 teams right in the middle of the table. Bournemouth is in bad form right now. They lost 0-2 this past weekend at Everton, which the scoreline doesn't really tell the story in that game. Bournemouth was actually the better team, producing many more chances than Everton. Just they were unable to convert. But however, over the last 2 months, they've been playing really bad. In their last 14 games, they have just 2 wins to go along with 1 draw and 11 losses. Granted, that schedule was pretty tough. They played all of the top 6 teams in the league, but they also have losses against teams down near the bottom like Newcastle and Brighton. So, odd team to watch right now, and they've been playing pretty poorly. West Ham, they earned a nice 1-0 win this weekend against Arsenal, which they played great defense. They limited Arsenal to just 2 shots on goal. They've now won 7 of their last 10 games in all competitions, although opposite of Bournemouth, they've had a pretty cake schedule during this stretch. They've played 5 of the 6 teams at the bottom of the table, with their first game against any quality opponent this past weekend in that win against Arsenal. But they did lose 0-2 at Burnley, another low-end team, in their last road game. Bournemouth is definitely an over team this year. They've had 16 to 22 games go over the 2.5 goals. But at this total, it's 2.75 juice to the over, or 3 at about even money. There isn't much value on the table for me. Only 9 of their 22 games have actually gone over 3, as many have landed right on 3. So this game is a tough for me to call. I would basically, flipping a coin trying to choose something here. So it's a pass for me on this game. Definitely you can put your money better spent somewhere else.
Okay, we got Brighton, Manchester United up next. Manchester United laying 1.5 goals here, total of 2.75. What did you write up a free play on this?
Yeah, we got a free play on Man United minus 1.5 here.
Okay.
This week. Big reason is we all know the story now, that they had their bad run through most of the first half of the season that ultimately led to the firing of their manager, Jose Mourinho. But now they have their new manager, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who has rallied off 6 straight wins, which is actually a record for a United manager to win their first 6 games. They really weren't tested, though, in their first 5 games, but they earned an impressive 1-0 win at Tottenham this past weekend. This is a big revenge spot for United. They lost 2-3 at Brighton in their first road game of the year, which was really the first time they had trouble in the clubhouse. But the players have really rallied around the new manager right now, and they look really, really good over the last 6 games and about 3.5, 4 weeks. This past weekend when they beat Tottenham, I didn't get to see the first half, but I was able to catch all the second half. United wasn't the better team in the second half, at least. Tottenham was great with the ball. They were pushing forward, creating chance after chance, and if not for an unreal game by United's keeper, De Gea, they could have easily lost. Tottenham got an amazing 11 shots on goal, all in the second half. So they must have been playing much, much better in the first half, at least at limiting them. But De Gea made some incredible saves and kept that as a 1-0 win for United. But listen, a win is a win. I get it. But the game just still showed United has a weakness on the defensive side of the ball, and I think that'll probably come to haunt them when they face Man City, Liverpool, and definitely when they make their run during the Champions League, which starts back up next month. But Brighton is not, any level close to those elite teams. They're 13 in the table with just 7 wins, 5 draws, and 10 losses this season. On the road, they've been very bad with just 2 wins and 2 draws, and they have 7 losses, and they've been outscored 9-18. So United won by at least two goals in each of those first 5 games against the weaker competition, and coming back after that huge win against Tottenham, and combined with the fact that they lost at Brighton, and this is that revenge spot I mentioned for them here, I think they're going to bring a lot of energy, and I think they're going to come out fast in this game. So I like United laying the 1.5 goals here, Drew, and that is my official free play this week.
All right, good stuff, Nick. We got Cardiff at Newcastle up next. Newcastle laying 0.5 goal, total of 2.25.
Yeah, ugly matchup here. Not one I'm going to be making time for my schedule to watch this weekend. You got 2 teams in the bottom 4 of the table, and both will definitely be down here the rest of the year battling against relegation. Cardiff has conceded the second most goals this year, 41 goals conceded through 22 games, scoring just 19. Newcastle has been a little bit better defensively. They've conceded just 31, but they've also struggled to score, scoring just 16. Newcastle, as you mentioned, Drew, is favored to win this game, but they've only managed 2 wins at home. When you get to the bottom of the table, and you got teams playing against each other down here, I usually like to look at the home team when the price is right. Usually you can find this somewhere between plus 120, maybe up to plus 150 even, because usually you just see that quarter of a goal line that we were talking about that's, kind of has 2 teams that are evenly marked. But the fact that this is priced around minus 105 or minus 110 on a half goal, I think the value is away from Newcastle, and I actually think it's there for Cardiff on the road as a double chance. So double chance is just another way to refer to plus 0.5 goals. It just means they can win the game 2 ways. They can either win on a draw or a win is how we win the wager. So double chance is a good way to refer to the plus 0.5 goals. Cardiff has just 1 win and 2 draws on the road this season, but they've been playing well against similar competition lately. They drew 0-0 at Crystal Palace. They won 1-0 at Leicester, and then they drew 0-0 against Huddersfield just this past weekend. So, they're not going to necessarily go out there and score 3 or 4 goals, but I think in this, what I would consider a pretty ugly matchup, and again, something I'm not going to be watching, I think the value here is with Cardiff on the road side, taking the double chance and going with plus 0.5. I think a draw is a real possibility here as well, so it might even be worth sprinkling a few bucks on the draw, which is around plus 230 right now, so good value there as well.
All right, guys, talking to Nick Borrman now, breaking down the EPL slate for Saturday and Sunday. We got golf coming up next. He's got 2 5% plays, which he's been great with. 13 and 6, 68% so far this season in the soccer 5%. My favorite, wording-wise, is the Friday Bundesliga 5% top-rated play. He's also got a Saturday La Liga play for 5%. And the coupon code for the podcast, you get half off of each of those. You can use it twice on each one. Borman15, normally $30. Borman15 coupon code gives it to you for just $15. That's BORRMAN15 at checkout for half off of each of his 5% plays. The Friday Bundesliga top play and the Saturday La Liga 5%. We got Everton at Southampton up next. This is a pick'em game. Total of 2.5. Nick, have at it.
Yeah, Everton, they're the better team in my opinion, and getting them here as a pick'em is the way I would play this game. They're number 10 in the table. They have 8 wins, 6 draws, and 8 losses, while Southampton has just 4 wins on the year and actually only has 1 at home. Southampton managed a nice 2-1 win at Leicester this weekend, despite being down to 10 men after a first-half red card. And Everton was able to beat Bournemouth 2-0 at home, despite being limited to just 3 shots on goal, which really brings me to my main point in this game. Everton just have better finishers up front. Both teams are averaging similar shots on goal per game, but Everton has converted those chances at a much higher clip than Southampton. Everton scores 1 goal for every 2.8 shots on target, which is good for the 6th best in the league, while Southampton has scored only once for every 4.4 shots on target. So that's the 3rd worst in the league. Compare both of those with the league average of 3.2, and you can see the difference on these two teams. Southampton is also allowing a full shot on goal more per game than Everton, which is they're actually 4th worst in the league in that department, and Everton's just under the league average. The over is also worth a look, as Southampton's defensive numbers have not been great, and they are actually finally scoring over the last few games. They've scored in each of their last 5 home games compared to just twice in their first 5 home games. They've also conceded 2 goals or more in 4 of the last 5 home games. So for those that like parlays, taking Everton as a pick'em and over 2.5 could be a fun way to play this game, but for me, I would just go with Everton on the pick'em line here.
Okay, we got Burnley at Watford up next, minus 0.75. Watford is at home, total of 2.5.
Yeah, line right now is it's moving towards Watford at minus a full goal, and for good reason. Burnley has just been bad this year. They have 6 wins, 3 draws, and 13 losses. They actually finished 7th last season and earned a berth in the Europa League, but they were ousted in that competition pretty early this year. This year, they don't look like anything like the team that finished with 14 wins this year, with 14 wins last year. They conceded 39 goals all of last year in 38 matches, so obviously just barely over 1 goal per game, and that was the reason for their success. This year, they've already conceded 43 goals, already more in just 22 games, just barely halfway through the season. So they're on pace for 74 goals conceded, which is nearly double last year's total. Offensively, they were never a big scoring team, and that hasn't changed much this year. But their defense is what the difference was last year. But this year, they're allowing the most shots on target per game at 6 per game, compared to the league average of 4.4. And on the road, that number is actually even higher at 6.5 shots on goal per game. Because of their struggles defensively, they've been an over team with 13 of their 22 games going over the total, averaging a total of exactly 3 goals per game. Watford has played well this year. They currently sit 7th in the table with 9 wins, 5 draws, and 8 losses. They pretty much have played how you'd expect a mid-table team to play. They're beating the teams down at the bottom like they should, but they're just not good enough to hang with the top 6 teams in the league. They have an even goal differential, scoring and conceding 32 goals. And they've also seen 13 of their 22 matches go over the total, including 9 of 11 at home. The first matchup resulted in a 3-1 win for Watford at Burnley, and that seems like a very likely score again here. So I like the over here, as Watford has had their defensive struggles this year, and I hate laying minus 3/4 of a goal or minus 1 goal on a team that gives up goals. So instead, I'll cheer for both defenses to suck and go with the over on this one.
All right. We got one more Saturday game and then a Sunday game before we get to the golf. Nick, wanted to ask you, does the EPL ever do like neutral site games?
Not very often. It's the way the Premier League and really all the soccer leagues are set up is each team plays each other twice, one home and one away. So if you do, a neutral field game, it really kind of unbalances the scheduling. It's a cool way to do the season where there's no arguing. We played you at home, we played you away, and you've played everybody in the league the same way. So it's a cool way to do the schedule. So if they throw any neutral games out there, it just kind of unbalances everything. Occasionally, if you get teams that are updating a stadium or something like that, they're going to have to, and usually it's for the whole season, they're going to have to find somewhere else to play. But generally, they don't do any neutral games.
In like the NFL, even college football will go over and play in London and try to kind of expand the viewership. Does the EPL do that at all over here, like playing New York?
No, not yet. There was actually talk of in Spain and La Liga of getting a game, one of the league games over in the United States this year. But the players, the league wants to do it. The players were very outspoken against it. No final decision has been made at this point. But no, right now, you're right. It's a good idea to get them over here to promote. And you'll see friendly matches over here. You'll see these teams like United, Chelsea, Manchester City come over to the United States and play friendlies. But those aren't the same kind of atmosphere, obviously, as these league games are. So unfortunately not, Drew. I wish there was. I would love to go to one of these Premier League games over here. But right now they haven't expanded that way.
We got Chelsea at Arsenal up next. Chelsea laying 0.25 on the road, total of 2.75.
Yeah, definitely the marquee matchup this week. But both teams actually haven't looked that great lately. Chelsea lost at Tottenham in the first leg of the EPL Cup last week, and then they earned an unimpressive 2-1 win against Newcastle this past weekend. They also drew at home against lowly Southampton and lost at home against Leicester recently. Arsenal, since their 22-game unbeaten streak was snapped, they've now lost 4 of their last 8 games, including being held scoreless this past weekend, 0-1, and a loss at West Ham. And they only managed 2 shots on goal in that game. The plus quarter goal line, home line for Arsenal is tempting, but I honestly don't see much of a chance that they're going to win this game. So I think the best result there would be a draw, which at plus 0.25 isn't really worth a full wager when you can only win half your wager back. So instead, I like the under here. The line opened at 3 and has moved down to 2.75. So we did miss a good number there, but I still like the under. There are some threes out there. If you shop around, you'll probably have to pay around minus 130 or so right now. And it's probable that they'll pop back on the board or come down in cost because the public's probably going to side with the over. So I would wait and see if you can get a better price here in the coming days. But Chelsea, they've been playing solid defense. They've had 7 of their last 11 matches stay under the total, with actually only one game going over 3 goals. Arsenal has had 5 of their last 9 matches stay under this total. And the 3 of the 4 that went over were against terrible defensive teams like Fulham, Burnley, and Southampton. Chelsea is much better with the ball, and they're going to limit the Gunners' opportunities here. The first matchup, Chelsea won 3-2 at home back in August with a total of 17 shots on goal, but that was a long time ago. And these teams are playing much, much differently now. So I'm going to wait and see if I can get the 3 back on the board and definitely make it a play if we can get around minus 120. It's still worth it if you can't get the under 3 and you can stick with the under 2.75 because I definitely think this game's I can see a 1-0 result or a 1-1 draw here. So I wouldn't go crazy, but definitely look to the under in this game.
All right, one soccer game left. It's on the Sunday slate before we get to the golf. Tottenham minus 0.75 at Fulham, total of 2.5. So
I mentioned earlier in the news update that Tottenham lost their star striker up front, Harry Kane, who's now out for 2 months with an ankle injury. So that changes this game entirely. Upon news of that, the line instantly moved from Tottenham minus 1 down to minus 0.75, and the total went from 2.75 down to 2.5. So you can see how the markets reacted to him being lost for a couple months. Tottenham also will be out without Son Heung-min, he's out on international duty playing for South Korea in the Asian Cup. So he was likely the guy to really be looked to score goals with Kane out. So now with their top 2 guys up front out, I don't know what to make of them right now. I was looking at the Spurs, Tottenham minus 1 and over 2.75, but with those two guys out up front, it's hard to do that at this point. Listen, Fulham is still a bad team. Nothing changes that. Tottenham has the depth to fill these voids, but they had a great rhythm going, and I think they will be somewhat out of sync, at least to start this game. In the end, Tottenham winning this game will not surprise me at all, but I just don't feel confident in betting on them, or the total for that matter, until I watch a couple games without Kane in the lineup. So this is a pass for me. But I'm definitely going to try to catch this game and see how they look, to try to understand, for future weeks what their value is going to look like, and how the market is going to react to it. So, unfortunately, I was going to probably have a play on this game, but I got to pass now with the news that Harry Kane's out. It's a tough loss for these guys. They're probably going from a chance at being all the way through the end of the year, a chance to win this league title, but losing him for 2 months, I think they're gonna drop quick in the standings, and I don't think they have a chance to catch up on any points to the leader. So pretty tough loss for these guys.
All right, Nick, great breakdown of the soccer matchups. Nick had 2 5% soccer plays up at sportsmemo.com. He's 13-6, 68% so far year to date on the 5% plays in soccer, and by using the coupon code BORMAN15 for either one of them, you can take half off of the price, normally $30, down to just $15 with the coupon code BORMAN15. He's got his 5% Friday Bundesliga play and also his Saturday La Liga 5% play at sportsmemo.com. Nick, we got the Desert Classic in golf. You've been great this year as well. So what do we need to know about the Desert Classic? Where is it? Who are you looking to bet? Any long shots you think the listeners need to know about?
All right, so quick recap from last week at the Sony Open. I went 5-1, won the 5% play on Mark Leishman, who finished tied for third over Jordan Spieth, who missed the cut. I was tweeting a couple times throughout the week, hashtag Fade Spieth, and I think he's going to be a guy I'm going to be looking to go against several times this year, or at least right now until he gets his putter under control. Matt Kuchar actually won the tournament. That's his second win already this season. I was also on Andrew Putnam, who had a chance. He ended up finishing second. And Leishman, as I mentioned, who finished third. So I had two guys really close to actually winning that tournament outright, but just couldn't quite get the job done. Also had Charles Howell as a free play, who finished eighth. So strong finishes with all those guys, now hitting 68% this year. So hope to stay hot here. And I have a 5-pack of picks up on sportsmemo.com for the Desert Classic this week. So we'll try to make it 8 out of 10 profitable weeks on the PGA Tour. This week they head to California for the Desert Classic. This is another full field event, but it's really much different than a typical tour stop. First, the players will play 4 rounds, but on 3 different courses, and they're going to be paired with an amateur. So there's a Pro-Am going on at the same time that these guys are playing their regular stroke play event. They're going to be playing La Quinta Country Club, the Nicklaus course at PGA West, and the TPC Stadium course at PGA West. The players will play 1 round at each course the first 3 days while being paired with an amateur. So a foursome will consist of 2 pros and 2 amateurs. Then after 3 rounds, there will be a cut for the final round at the TPC Stadium course, which usually happens after 2 rounds. So a lot going on here, atypical of a regular event. Some notes on the courses. All 3 are standard par 72 courses. La Quinta is the easiest of the 3 and was actually the easiest par 72 course on the PGA Tour the last 2 years, with a scoring average of 68.83. Nicklaus course was second at 69.45, and then the TPC Stadium course was the hardest at 71.18. So a good 2.5 shots harder than La Quinta. So one thing to remember here as we watch the scoreboard throughout the week is after 1 or 2 rounds, the leaderboard isn't necessarily a fair comparison, as some players may have played the easier tracks and vice versa. But after the 3rd round and the cut is made, everything will be apples to apples then. So, when looking at players on any given week, it's always important to look at past history at a course. But for me, this week is especially important. You have you got the guys playing multiple courses combined with the fact that they're playing with amateurs. It just has much of a less of a regular tour event feel to it, and it's weird for guys that haven't really done it before. So I'm definitely looking for players that have played well in this event in the past, and of course you always have to stick with either hot or cold hands in golf, because players can get into funks and get into grooves, and they can last for several weeks at a time. John Rahm is the defending champ here. He won in a playoff here last year with a score of 22 under par. I think he'll definitely be near the top again this year. Some other guys I like this week are Andrew Putnam again. He finished second last week and was one of my picks. I think he's going to be near the top and worth a few bucks on winning this thing outright. Guy's been playing as hot as anyone. Adam Hadwin. He hasn't played he didn't play the last 2 weeks in Hawaii, but he's been really just a great player at this tournament. He's the last 3 years he's finished tied for sixth, second, and tied for third. So very, very close. And he's going to definitely be there at the top of the leaderboard this year. And then Ryan Palmer. He's another guy. He's a long shot. But he's got a long history of doing well here with 7 top 20 finishes in his time here. So those are some of the names I like to possibly get this thing outright this week. A couple big names out there. Phil Mickelson returns to action for the first time since he won against Tiger Woods in the match back on Black Friday. And Justin Rose is making his first appearance here in 9 years. But I'm not going to be looking at either one of those guys to perform well this week. Phil's out of action for quite a while, so it takes these guys a little while to get back to tournament speed. And then Rose just hasn't played here in a long time, so he can definitely win any given week. But I just think the fact that he hasn't played in this event in quite a while and hasn't played these courses, I think he's a guy to avoid for me this week. So looking forward to watching this event. Hopefully we see a lot of good golf. I mean, we're on a stretch of basically a tournament every week now through the end of the season, so it's going to be a busy time going forward. And of course, I'm just counting the days until I can get back on the course myself. Where I'm at right now, it's cold, shitty outside. I can't wait for it to get to April so we can get outside. Perhaps I can come down and visit you soon, and you'll take me out for a round. Drew, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Whenever you want. You're invited down here to South Florida. Got a place for you to stay. And you bring up the fact, Nick, that every weekend there's a golf match, and what you got a package now, golf all access through the Tour Championship at Sportsmemo for just $399. So that gets you all the way through August, Nick?
Yep, gets you all the way through the end of this season, the Tour Championship, which is moved up to August this year from September. So yeah, every week, every selection I have all the way through Tour Championship.
All right, cool. So for under $400, you can get every pick in golf, which Nick's been great. 30-14 on the season. That's 68% in golf. Nick, you bring up the fact Spieth struggling putting. Is that what you said?
Yeah, 2 years ago he was the guy. He won the U.S. Open. He won the Masters and won a back-to-back. He almost then won the British Open right after that. So he was winning 3 majors in a series of 5. I mean, he was the guy. Nobody could touch him, and his putting was key. He has gotten out of it, and golf's just one of those weird games where it's so mental. A lot of sports you're playing with a team, and when you're struggling a little bit, your teammates can pick you up. But obviously that just doesn't happen in golf. And when you get in your own head out there on the course, it's hard. I mean, I've gone through stretches of my own game where when I'm playing well, I'm confident. I can't miss. And then you go through the same thing where all of a sudden you have this thought in your head while you're out there, and you're just thinking, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, and you know what your miss is. And for him, he's on the putting green. Hank Haney, who's a pretty famous instructor, just kind of made a comment this past week. He thinks Spieth has the putting yips, which is a terrible word to say in golf. If you're a golfer at all, know the yips. So, I mean, he's struggling right now, and until he turns that around, he's going to be tough to bet on, and definitely a guy I'll be looking to go against. But I like him. I hope he does turn around. He's a good young American player, good for the game. So I hoop he does turn around. But hey, there's money to be made, and if we got to go against him right now, we'll do it.
And Nick, I'm sure. What's the slogan? It goes you drive for show, you putt for dough.
That's it. Yep. You hit it as far as you want. Hit it wherever on the golf course you want. If you can't put that ball in that hole, you are not going to do well, especially out here with these guys.
And do you think that there's that is 100% truth as far as if you're playing golf for money with your friends, you should be concentrating on putting, not on driving.
So think of this: on a par 72 golf course. Par is dictated by however many shots it takes to get to the green plus 2 putts per hole. So on a par 72 golf course, it's actually 36 putts is what's expected. So when half of your strokes are coming on the putting green, yeah, you definitely want to spend most of the time on the putting green. And unfortunately, for most of the people that I've seen over the years, I've instructed golf for a long time. Most people want to, and rightfully so, you need to work on the full swing, and you want to be able to hit your driver well. But honestly, there's a lot more strokes to be saved around the putting green and definitely on the putting green. You can make up for 1 or 2 bad shots if you can sink a 10-footer or 15-footer or even just making 5-footers consistently. But if you can't putt, it doesn't matter if you can get to the hole, in regulation every single time. You're going to be 2 or 3 putting. You're going to be making tough scores. So putting is definitely key.
All right, Nick. Yeah, no, I agree. I've tried to concentrate on my putting game a lot. Lot to improve on, I'll say. So I need you to come down and we should go out or something. But guys, thanks for tuning in. Great podcast, Nick. A lot of good information, both in the EPL and for the Desert Classic and golf going forward. Fade the guys struggling putting, man. I'm looking to do that as well.
That's the key for sure. Hey, practicing putting, it's not sexy, it's boring, but I'm telling you out there for the listeners, that's where the money's at in your round. And if you want to take a few bucks from your friends when you go out and play, spend your time on the putting green, let them go to the driving range.
That's a good way to end it, Nick. So thanks for the time, and we'll have you on next Wednesday. We got another golf tournament and EPL matches, or you want to do La Liga next week?
Next weekend, the EPL is not playing. They have a couple FA Cup matches. They'll play midweek next week, so I might switch for next weekend and go with either La Liga or maybe the Bundesliga. But EPL is off for a couple days, so we'll definitely probably go with a different one next weekend.
Okay, sounds good. So next Wednesday, keep a lookout. You can follow Nick on Twitter at Borman00 or myself at Drew Martin Bets. Let us know what you want to hear on the podcast. And guys, best of luck with your bets. We'll be back tomorrow with some NHL betting podcasts. Best of luck with your bets.